All right, so welcome to another deep dive. And today we're going to tackle something a little different.
Oh.
Our single source this time is a YouTube video.
Huh.
And it features this Polish psychic, Krzysztof Jakowski.
Okay.
And he is making some pretty bold predictions about the future of global politics.
Yeah, Jakowski has quite a following. His predictions often spark some pretty heated debates.
Yeah.
We're going to be focusing on his insights about a potential return of Donald Trump to the political stage, Elon Musk's role in a changing world, and a potential financial revolution.
Okay, so let's jump right in.
Right into it.
Jakowski envisions Trump coming back with what he calls a shock therapy revolution. He predicts Trump will make a dramatic break from the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
And not just overfunding.
Right. It's more symbolic than that.
Yeah.
He sees this break as a way for Trump to reject the established pandemic narrative, and it goes even further. Jakowski believes Trump would attempt to reveal what he claims is the truth about the pandemic, potentially implicating other countries in a coordinated deception.
Wow. That's a bold claim.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the plausibility of this scenario?
Well, it's definitely a controversial prediction.
Yeah.
While there's always room for debate and questioning official narratives, accusing countries of a deliberate pandemic cover-up is a serious allegation with potentially huge consequences.
Right.
If such a revelation were to happen, it could lead to significant global instability, reshaping alliances and international relations in ways we can only speculate about.
So from a global health perspective, we could see a ripple effect across international organizations and collaborations, potentially disrupting existing disease prevention and response systems.
Exactly. The WHO plays a crucial role in coordinating global health efforts. So a major shakeup like this could have a profound impact on how we address pandemics and other health challenges.
Okay, Jakowski then points to Russia's Sputnik vaccine, suggesting that their seemingly independent and rapid development of the vaccine implies they weren't fully aligned with the global pandemic response.
He even raises questions about why Russia seemingly had an effective vaccine ready while other countries were struggling, suggesting they might have had information or insights that others didn't. This is where things get a bit murky, and we need to separate speculation from facts.
Right.
There's been a lot of discussion about the Sputnik vaccine's efficacy and potential political motivations behind its development.
Right, so the question becomes, was the Sputnik vaccine genuinely a scientific breakthrough?
Yeah.
Or was it more about political maneuvering and projecting a certain image on the world stage?
Exactly. It's worth noting that while Sputnik was initially met with skepticism from some Western countries, it has since been recognized by the World Health Organization and various regulatory bodies.
Okay, so we've got Trump potentially shaking up the global health landscape and a cloud of mystery surrounding the Sputnik vaccine. What else does Jakowski see happening on the world stage?
Well, he predicts a much more confrontational and transactional approach from Trump in foreign policy, particularly towards Europe. He sees Trump using strategic withdrawal from international commitments, things like Ukraine aid and NATO involvement, as a way to force Europe to take on more responsibility.
That sounds familiar. Didn't we see hints of this during Trump's previous time in office?
Yes, there are definitely echoes of his past actions and rhetoric in this prediction.
Yeah.
Jakowski believes Trump would essentially try to play different global powers against each other, particularly China and Russia, to advance American interests.
And how do you think such a strategy would play out on the global stage?
Well, it's a complex question with potentially far-reaching consequences. If the U.S. were to significantly reduce its involvement in NATO or withdraw support for Ukraine, it could create a power vacuum that other countries would rush to fill.
Right.
This could lead to increased tensions, instability, and possibly even military conflict.
It's certainly a high-stakes scenario. And speaking of high stakes, Jakowski also envisions a couple of attempts on Trump's life.
Yes. He predicts one attempt on a grand staircase and another involving a car bombing.
Wow.
He believes that if Trump were to be assassinated, he would become a martyr for his followers, further dividing American society.
It's a chilling thought. And it speaks to the deep polarization that continues to grip American politics. But it's important to remember that these are just predictions.
Of course.
And we should approach them with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Absolutely. While it's true that political figures are often targets of violence,
Right.
we can't say with any certainty whether these specific claims are credible or likely to occur. It's crucial to separate speculation from substantiated threats.
Right. Tchaikovsky also touches upon Trump's relationship with Poland, predicting that he will become increasingly critical of certain Polish politicians, accusing them of not serving Poland's best interests, and potentially undermining U.S.-Polish relations.
This is particularly intriguing considering Tchaikovsky's own Polish background. It seems his predictions about global politics are intertwined with his personal views on his home country's role in the world.
So we're seeing a mix of global and local concerns woven into his predictions.
Exactly. He seems to be suggesting that even as global power dynamics shift, individual nations will still grapple with their own internal struggles and anxieties about their place in the changing world order.
Yeah, this is already a lot to unpack, and we haven't even gotten to Elon Musk and the invisible money revolution yet. Where does Musk fit into all of this?
Well, Tchaikovsky sees Musk playing a key role in Trump's potential return, particularly in reshaping the global financial landscape. He predicts the introduction of a new form of invisible digital currency backed by algorithms, potentially linked to cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin.
Hold on, invisible money. Could you elaborate on that a bit? That sounds pretty futuristic.
It does, doesn't it? It's not entirely clear from the source material exactly how this new currency would work. But Tchaikovsky suggests it would be designed to bolster the U.S. dollar and give America a financial edge in the global market.
So it sounds like we're talking about a potential paradigm shift in how we think about money and finance. A world where physical currency becomes obsolete and digital transactions dominate.
Precisely. And that raises a whole host of questions about the potential benefits and risks of such a system.
And I imagine the role of technology and figures like Elon Musk would be central to this transformation.
Absolutely. Tchaikovsky seems to believe that technological innovation will be a driving force in shaping the future, potentially even more so than traditional political power.
Wow. This is already shaping up to be one of our most thought-provoking deep dives yet. Okay, let's take a moment to digest all of this before we move on. This is a lot to wrap our heads around.
It certainly is. We've got predictions about dramatic political shifts, a potential financial revolution, and even whispers of assassination attempts. Quite a lot to consider. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I think it's worth circling back to this idea of invisible money. I have to admit, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the concept.
Yeah, it's a fascinating idea, isn't it? Tchaikovsky is a bit vague on the specifics, but he suggests this new currency would be somehow tied to algorithms and potentially linked to existing cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin.
So it's not just about digitizing the dollar, it's about creating a whole new financial system. Potentially one that operates outside the control of traditional institutions.
That seems to be the implication. He sees this invisible money as a way for America to regain its financial dominance on the world stage, perhaps even surpassing the power of traditional reserve currencies.
That ties back to his predictions about Trump's more confrontational approach to foreign policy. It's like he envisions a world where America is willing to use all the tools at its disposal, economic, political, and technological, to assert its dominance. It's a vision that's likely to be met with mixed reactions, to say the least. Some might see it as a necessary step to ensure American security and prosperity in a changing world, while others might view it as a dangerous and destabilizing shift towards unilateralism.
Right. It all depends on your perspective and what you prioritize in terms of global order and cooperation. Speaking of perspectives, I'm curious to know what our listener thinks about all of this. Do these predictions spark excitement, concern, or maybe a bit of both?
Perhaps they see something we're missing, some connection or implication that hasn't occurred to us yet. That's what makes these deep dives so engaging, the opportunity to explore different viewpoints and interpretations.
Okay, back to the invisible money for a moment. You mentioned potential benefits and risks earlier. Could you expand on that a bit? What are some of the potential upsides and downsides of such a system?
Well, on the positive side, a digital currency could potentially lead to greater financial inclusion, allowing people without access to traditional banking systems to participate more fully in the global economy. It could also streamline transactions, reduce costs, and increase transparency.
That all sounds pretty appealing. But I imagine there are also some significant risks and challenges involved.
Of course, security would be paramount. A system like this would need to be incredibly robust and resistant to cyber attacks and data breaches. We're talking about potentially trillions of dollars flowing through a digital network. So the stakes would be incredibly high.
And what about privacy? If all our transactions are digital and trackable, Wouldn't that give governments and corporations unprecedented access to our financial data?
That's a valid concern. It would be crucial to establish clear rules and safeguards to protect individual privacy and prevent misuse of this data. We'd need to carefully consider the trade-offs between transparency and individual liberties.
And let's not forget the potential for manipulation or control. If a single entity, whether it's a government or a tech company, has too much power over this new financial system, it could be used to censor transactions, restrict access, or even manipulate markets.
Absolutely. The issue of centralization versus decentralization would be a major point of debate. Would this invisible money be controlled by a central authority? Or would it be a more distributed system like some existing cryptocurrencies? The answer to that question would have profound implications for how this new system operates and who benefits from it.
It seems like Joukowsky is leaning towards a system that would ultimately strengthen the U.S. dollar and give America a more dominant position in the global financial system.
That seems to be his vision. He predicts that America will become a two-currency country, with the dollar existing alongside this new digital currency.
It's like he's envisioning a digital dollar that would somehow be even more powerful than the physical dollar, a kind of supercharged currency. That would allow America to project its economic power across the globe.
It's a bold prediction, and it certainly raises a lot of questions about the future of finance and the role of technology in shaping global power dynamics.
This is all very intriguing, and to be honest, a little bit intimidating. It's hard to even imagine what a world run on invisible money would look like. But it's clear that this concept is already sparking a lot of discussion and debate.
It is, and it's something that our listeners should definitely be aware of and start thinking about, because whether we like it or not, the world of finance is rapidly changing, and it's going to impact all of our lives in one way or another.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we spent a lot of time talking about the economic and technological aspects of Joukowsky's predictions. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about some of the social and political implications.
Certainly, Joukowsky also delves into some controversial social issues, particularly focusing on Trump's stance on gender and sexuality. He mentions that Trump would reaffirm traditional definitions of gender, seeing it as a very important signal for a world that has gone too far.
That's a statement that's bound to evoke strong reactions from people across the political spectrum.
Absolutely. It's a complex and sensitive topic. And Joukowsky's perspective seems to reflect a certain anxiety about the pace of social change and the perceived erosion of traditional values.
It's interesting that he doesn't explicitly condemn LGBTQ+ individuals. He even mentions respecting their feelings and identities. But he seems to draw a line when it comes to legal recognition and formalizing these identities in law.
He argues that law must constitute law, and that social issues should be dealt with separately. He advocates for tolerance and respect, but believes that elevating social issues to the level of law creates a slippery slope.
This is definitely a controversial viewpoint, and it speaks to a broader debate about the role of law in shaping social norms and values.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that even seemingly fantastical predictions can be grounded in real-world social and political debates.
It would be interesting to hear our listeners' thoughts on this. Do they see this potential clash between traditional values and evolving social norms as a major point of contention in the future?
Perhaps they have their own interpretation of what this signal to the world means.
That's a great point. We always encourage our listeners to engage with these ideas critically and form their own opinions.
Absolutely. There are no easy answers when it comes to these complex social issues, and it's important to have open and respectful dialogue.
Okay, before we get too deep into the philosophical weeds, let's bring it back to Elon Musk for a moment. Joukowsky seems to view Musk as a pivotal figure in all of this, particularly when it comes to this invisible money revolution. He even highlights a specific gesture that Musk makes in a photo with Trump, a gesture that he interprets as a sign of victory and ambition.
Yes, he describes it as a gesture of, we're going to win, we're taking over. He emphasizes that it's not meant to be a negative or threatening gesture, but rather a display of confidence and purpose.
It's interesting that he feels the need to clarify that it's not a negative gesture. It suggests that he's aware of the potential for misinterpretation and the sensitivities surrounding certain symbols and gestures.
It also speaks to the power of imagery and symbolism, particularly in the age of social media, where a single photo or gesture can be instantly disseminated and analyzed by millions of people around the world.
Right. It's all about optics and how those optics are perceived and interpreted by different audiences.
Precisely. And in a world where information travels at lightning speed, the ability to control and shape those optics is becoming increasingly important.
This ties back to our earlier discussion about the potential for manipulation and control within a digital financial system. It seems like Joukowsky is suggesting that the battle for the future will be fought not just on the economic and technological fronts,
Right.
but also on the informational and symbolic fronts.
I think that's a very astute observation. It's a reminder that power isn't just about military might or economic dominance. It's also about controlling the narrative, shaping perceptions, and influencing how people think and feel about the world around them.
Okay, so we've got Trump potentially reshaping the global landscape, a new financial system built on invisible money, and Elon Musk positioned as a key player in this transformation. There's a lot to take in. What else does Joukowsky have in store for us?
Well, he also touches on a few other intriguing predictions. For example, he suggests that Trump might attempt to purchase Greenland,
What?
a move that would surely send shockwaves through the international community.
Wow, that's a bold move even for someone like Trump. I wonder what the strategic implications of such a purchase would be. What does Greenland offer that would make it so valuable?
That's a great question. It's possible that Joukowsky is hinting at some untapped resources or strategic importance that Greenland holds, something that might not be immediately apparent to the casual observer. Perhaps it's about its geographic location, its potential for mineral extraction, or even its role in a changing Arctic landscape.
Or maybe it's just about Trump wanting to make a big splashy move that would cement his legacy as a dealmaker and a disruptor. He's certainly not known for being subtle.
True enough. And it wouldn't be the first time that a seemingly outlandish prediction turned out to be closer to reality than anyone expected.
That's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're exploring the realm of the possible. The potential futures that might seem far-fetched today, but could very well become tomorrow's reality.
Exactly. It's about expanding our horizons and considering alternative scenarios, however improbable they might seem at first glance.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the invisible money revolution to Trump's potential dealings with Greenland. Before we move on, I want to circle back to the assassination attempts that Joukowsky predicts. It's a disturbing thought, and I'm wondering if you have any further insights or perspectives to offer on that.
It's important to remember that we're dealing with predictions here, not facts.
Right.
But while it's true that political figures are often targets of violence, we can't say with any certainty whether these specific claims are credible or likely to occur.
I know. It's just, it's hard not to get caught up in the drama of it all, especially when Joukowsky describes these attempts in such vivid detail.
He does have a knack for storytelling, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But it's crucial to maintain a critical distance and avoid jumping to conclusions.
Right. We need to balance our fascination with the unknown with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Exactly. It's about exploring these predictions with an open mind, but also grounding our analysis in facts and evidence.
And remembering that the future is ultimately unwritten. No matter how accurate or insightful a prediction might seem, there are always unforeseen variables and unpredictable twists and turns that can shape the course of events.
Precisely. And that's what makes the study of the future so captivating. It's a realm of infinite possibilities, and we can only speculate about what might unfold.
Speaking of possibilities, there's one more prediction that I found particularly intriguing. Joukowsky mentions that Trump will become increasingly critical of certain Polish politicians, accusing them of not serving Poland's best interests and potentially undermining U.S.-Polish relations.
This is particularly interesting given Joukowsky's own Polish background. It seems his predictions about global politics are intertwined with his personal views on his home country's role in the world.
It's like we're seeing a microcosm of the broader themes we've been discussing: the shifting balance of power, the clash of ideologies, and the anxieties about navigating a rapidly changing world.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even as we grapple with global issues, we're also shaped by our own individual experiences and perspectives. Our personal narratives are interwoven with the larger story of human history.
And that personal element can sometimes be the most revealing and insightful aspect of any prediction.
Absolutely. It adds depth, nuance, and a human touch to what might otherwise seem like abstract or distant events.
Okay, I think we've squeezed every last drop of insight out of Joukowsky's predictions. For now. It's been a wild ride.
It certainly has. We've explored a lot of potentially world-altering events: a Trumpian revolution, a new world order, a financial system built on invisible money. And we've delved into the anxieties and aspirations that fuel these predictions.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to ask you a question that's been on my mind throughout this discussion. What's the takeaway for our listener? Should they be prepping their bunkers, investing in Bitcoin, or just brushing up on their Polish?
I wouldn't recommend any of those just yet. Remember, these are predictions, not guarantees. The future is always in flux. And even the most astute observers can be wrong.
Right. So it's not about taking these predictions as gospel truth, but rather about engaging with them critically and extracting the nuggets of wisdom and insight that they offer.
Exactly. The real value of this deep dive lies not in the accuracy of Joukowsky's predictions,
Right.
but in the questions they raise, questions about the role of technology, the shifting balance of global power, and the very nature of money itself.
And let's not forget the questions about our own individual roles in shaping the future. Do we passively accept the changes that come our way, or do we actively participate in creating the world we want to live in?
Such a good point. So as we leave you to ponder these possibilities, we want to leave you with one final, perhaps even more mind-bending question.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
What if Joukowsky's vision isn't about specific events, but about broader trends? What if his predictions are less about literal occurrences and more about metaphors for deeper shifts in consciousness, power dynamics, and the human relationship with technology?
It's a whole new way of looking at these predictions, seeing them as symbolic representations of larger trends and anxieties.
Right, and it makes you wonder, if these are metaphors, what other shifts might Joukowsky be hinting at? Could there be deeper meanings embedded in his prophecies that we haven't even considered yet?
I love that you're pushing us to think even further beyond the surface. What stands out to you as particularly intriguing when you view these predictions through this metaphorical lens?
Well, the invisible money concept, for instance. If we think of it as representing intangible forms of value, it raises questions about the future of work, wealth, and power. What happens when data becomes the most valuable commodity? How do we measure and distribute wealth in a world where traditional forms of currency are less relevant?
It's almost like we're entering a new era of digital feudalism, where those who control the data hold the real power.
Yeah, it's a thought-provoking comparison. And if we extend that metaphor, could Trump's shock therapy revolution represent a push to disrupt the existing power structures, to shake up the status quo and create a new order where these intangible forms of value are more central?
It's almost as if he's trying to pave the way for this new digital age, even if it means dismantling the institutions and systems that have defined the world for centuries.
And perhaps Musk, with his focus on technology and innovation, represents the driving force behind this transformation. He's the one who's building the tools and platforms that are enabling this shift towards a more digital, data-driven world.
So instead of seeing these predictions as a series of isolated events, we can view them as interconnected pieces of a larger puzzle, a puzzle that reveals a potential future where the very foundations of our society are being reconfigured.
It's a future that's both exciting and unsettling, full of possibilities and uncertainties.
And it raises some profound questions about what it means to be human in a world where technology is becoming increasingly intertwined with every aspect of our lives.
Right. If our identities, our relationships, and even our sense of self are increasingly mediated through digital platforms, what does that mean for our values, our beliefs, and our understanding of the world?
These are questions that philosophers and futurists have been grappling with for decades. But Joukowsky's predictions bring them into sharp focus, forcing us to confront the potential realities of a world that is rapidly transforming before our eyes.
And even if we don't agree with his specific predictions or interpretations, the value lies in the questions they provoke, the conversations they spark, and the new ways of thinking they inspire.
So, to our listener, we leave you with this challenge. Don't just dismiss these predictions as outlandish or fantastical. Instead, use them as a springboard for your own explorations. Dive deeper into the trends they highlight. Consider the potential implications, and imagine the world that might emerge from this complex interplay of technology, politics, and human consciousness. The future is unwritten, and your understanding of it is just as valuable as any expert's. Keep diving deep.